Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Oh. Hui Yuhao had originally planned to ponder the few capturing techniques that Bei Bei had taught him yesterday, but he immediately turned blank after hearing what Tang Wei had said. The three continued their journey. While they were walking, Tang Wei explained the situation within Shrek Academy to Hui Yuhao. Shrek Academy had been established 10,000 years ago, and the word Shrek meant monster in the ancient language. This also meant that the people who'd founded Shrek Academy at the start had wanted to establish an academy of monsters. Shrek Academy's oldest motto was to breed only monsters, not ordinary people, but the word monster actually referred to geniuses. Even the person who'd founded the Doluo continent's number 1 Tang sect had graduated from Shrek Academy, and it was also that student who brought about the first glorious moment for Shrek Academy. At that time, Shrek Academy had only had their founding students, who were referred to as the Shrek's 7 monsters within the Shrek Academy's history. The story of Shrek's 7 monsters had already spread for a long time, and the most famous of them was still the husband and wife couple that included the sect master of the Tang sect. Afterwards, although the Tang sect declined, Shrek Academy still stood high. Furthermore, following the developments that came with the passage of time, it gradually became the number 1 academy on the Doluo continent. Nowadays, Shrek Academy held a position of power within the continent, the root of the cause of being the continental war that had occurred during the collision of the Doluo continent and the Sun-Moon continent 4,000 years ago. When the war had only just started, the 3 empires of the Doluo continent had been divided in their opinions, causing the Doluo continent to be at a disadvantageous position during the start of the war. So much so that the army of the Sun-Moon continent had been able to make their way to the inner parts of the Doluo continent. At this crucial moment, Shrek Academy's dean from that year had made a rallying cry. This had an unexpectedly large response, causing nearly 60 titled Doluo super experts to temporarily become the commanders of the 3 armies. After taking command of their armies, they swiftly destroyed the Sun-Moon Empire's army, obtaining the final victory in the war, and unifying the continents into one called the Doluo continent. The Sun-Moon Empire only managed to continue existing afterwards by giving up its lands, and by paying war reparations. However, their military strength had been weakened by an extremely large amount, which led to them being unable to contend with the 3 combined armies of the Doluo continent anymore. Its military strength was equivalent to that of a single empire, at most. The war also caused the reputation of Shrek's Academy to soar. It wasn't just because Shrek Academy had gathered 60 titled Doluos, but was also because that year's dean had become the commander of the 3 empires' unified army. Under his rallying cry, the royal families from the 3 great empires discovered, to their great surprise, that practically all of the generals of the unified army had come from Shrek Academy. Under the unified allocation of resources by Shrek Academy's dean, the combined army of the 3 great empires no longer had any discord between them. It was also because of this unification that they were able to achieve victory. From then on, Shrek Academy no longer belonged to any single country, it had become a standalone existence. Tang Wei told Hui Yuhao that Shrek Academy was currently divided into 2 parts, the inner courtyard and the outer courtyard. Every year, the number of new students they'd recruit was around 1,000 or so, yet the total number of students within the academy had never surpassed 5,000. It would take 12 years for one to complete their studies and graduate after entering Shrek Academy. This also meant that Shrek Academy's elimination rate was extremely high every year. If one wasn't able to pass the academy's assessments, he'd be mercilessly kicked out of the academy. However, every single person that managed to successfully graduate from Shrek Academy was a once-in-a-generation genius. It could be said that Shrek Academy was truly a cradle filled with experts, so much so that even political issues would occur between the Tianhun Empire, Doling Empire, and Star Luo Empire due to the number of students that Shrek Academy would admit each year. The fame of the number 1 academy in the world could clearly be seen from this. The Sun-Moon Empire, on the other hand, possibly due to their enmity with Shrek Academy, had never asked to send people to study at Shrek Academy. There were also a few high-level academies within the Sun-Moon Empire that had already reached a fairly high standard after experiencing a few thousand years of development. Only, the Sun-Moon Empire's military strength had always been limited due to the pact they'd made after the war, which prevented them from expanding too much. Thus, the Sun-Moon Empire was still keeping a low profile, at least on the surface. Yuhao, once you enter the academy, you'll cultivate in the outer courtyard. The outer courtyard is split into many faculties, so you should temporarily cultivate inside the control faculty. At the same time, you should simultaneously study inside of the Seoul Engineering Institution. How about it? Tang San asked Hui Yuhao after giving him a simple introduction to the Shrek Academy's internal situation. Teacher Xiao Ya, what's this Seoul Engineering Institution? Hui Yuhao asked. Tang Ya replied, the so-called Seoul Engineering Institution is a place created for the sake of studying soul weapons. She unexpectedly clenched her teeth in anger as she said the words soul weapons. Soul weapons. Hui Yuhao was still slightly puzzled. However, you couldn't blame him. Shrek Academy was currently the #1 academy on the continent, yet he'd grown up in a closed environment since he was young. Thus, he naturally had little knowledge and experience of such matters. Over 4,000 years ago, war quickly broke out when the Sun-Moon continent collided with our Doluo continent. The three empires' armies, supported by the hidden weapons of our Tang sect, collided with the army of the Sun-Moon Empire. In the end, although the Sun-Moon Empire wasn't strong in the aspect of soul masters, they possessed unique insights in the aspects of soul tools. These soul tools were activated with soul force, and surpassed our Tang sect's hidden weapons in strength as a whole, as well as in attack range. In the end, it caused the three empires of our Doluo continent to suffer disastrous losses during the initial phase of the war. Although we won the war in the end, the effectiveness of our Tang sect's hidden weapons was called into question. From then on, various countries started a large-scale reduction in purchasing our hidden weapons. Even though our income was still high, a large portion of it was donated out, as per the will of the first sect master. The donated money was used to improve the lifestyle of the ordinary folk who lived in impoverished areas, as well as to build schools and other public facilities. Thus, we didn't have a lot of extra cash. At that time, the Tang sect had several thousand people in it. However, the speed of our decline was simply too quick. After only a mere 200 years, our Tang sect had rapidly declined. The former #1 sect in the continent never saw its former glory again. When the Tang sect reached my generation, the only three people left were my father, my mother, and me. And when we were hunting some soul beasts, my mother and father died. Thus, the Tang sect only had a lone child like me left. When she got to this point, tears flowed down Tang Ya's smooth and exquisite face, and she couldn't help but clench her fists tightly. Hui Yuhao murmured, Teacher Xiao Ya, are our Tang sect's hidden weapons truly incomparable to these soul tools? Tang Ya sighed and said, in certain aspects, what you say is indeed true. What the Sun-Moon continent brought to us wasn't just soul tools, but also a plentiful amount of minerals. These rare minerals are all extremely good conductors for soul force, which makes them especially suitable for manufacturing soul tools. This caused the high-speed development of soul tools to happen during the few thousand years after the war had ended, which resulted in an even smaller market for our Tang sect's hidden weapons. However, in the field of degree of meticulousness, as well as design ingenuity, our Tang sect's hidden weapons absolutely surpass soul tools. This is especially true of a few sharp hidden weapons, which are even superior to soul weapons. However, the manufacturing requirements for those hidden weapons are also extremely complicated. Hui Yuhao replied, Teacher Xiao Ya, eldest senior brother, since soul weapons are so strong, why did the Sun-Moon Empire lose to the allied army of our three empires during the war? Bei smiled calmly and said, that's because, although the soul weapons they possessed back then were strong, even the strongest soul tool wasn't able to compare to the fighting power of a titled Doluo. However, after a few thousand years of development, a few especially strong soul tools have begun to appear, whose strength can even threaten titled Doluos. However, soul tools have a major issue, which is the fact that stronger soul tools require stronger soul masters to use them to their fullest extent. If you don't have enough soul force to support their usage, their power will be extremely limited. Thus, an interesting phenomena has occurred after our two continents merged together. The people over here are doing their utmost to study the methods needed to manufacture soul tools, while the people over at the Sun-Moon Empire are doing their best to cultivate strong soul masters. After these past few thousand years, our two continents seem to actually be somewhat balanced. Hui Yuhao finally had an initial understanding of Shrek Academy, with Bei Bei and Tang Yue's introductions. After Tang Yue rubbed the tears off of her face, she grabbed Hui Yuhao's sleeve and said, "Little Yuhao, the most important thing for you to do right now is to stay within Shrek Academy. Bei Bei and I are already third-year students, and it shouldn't be a problem for us to rise to the rank of fourth-year students since I've obtained my 1,000-year soul ring. After becoming fourth-year students, the elimination rate isn't that high. After a few more years, we'll have the chance to enter the inner courtyard and study there. However, you're different. After entering the academy as a first-year student, the competition you'll face will be the most intense. The academy will have an assessment for new students every 3 months, and only students who are able to pass the assessment can stay. Although our Tang sect has the privilege of admitting a single student into Shrek Academy, whether you can continue to stay will all depend on you. This is something that no one can help you with, do you understand?" Hui Yuhao nodded his head seriously as he said, "Teacher Xiao Yue, I will definitely do my best. However, with your and eldest senior brother's power, have you actually not become students of the inner courtyard?" Tang Yue replied, "Wanting to enter the inner courtyard of Shrek Academy is easier said than done. The rules for Shrek Academy have never been changed. The outer courtyard was only created later on, due to the three empires' requests, so that they could cultivate even more talented people. However, only students who have entered the inner courtyard are considered true students of Shrek Academy. Every single student in the inner courtyard is a genius or a monstrous genius, and some of them can only be described as monsters. Students in the outer courtyard will have a test after staying there for 6 years, and can graduate after passing that test. Only the most outstanding people that take the test, which number extremely few, will have the chance to take the entrance exam for the inner courtyard. Only after passing that test will they have permission to enter the inner courtyard. The time taken to complete their studies within the inner courtyard is also 6 years. Supposedly, every single person that has graduated from the inner courtyard is at least an expert of the Soul Emperor rank. Furthermore, they'll receive the best treatment from all countries, including the Sun Moon Empire. It's that amazing." When Hui Yuhao heard this, he couldn't help a feeling of infatuation rising in his heart. He secretly thought to himself that, if he could one day become a graduating student from Shrek Academy's inner courtyard, he could return to the Duke's mansion to ask for his mother's remains. Then, his mother could be at peace. After he thought of this, he couldn't help but clench his fists tightly. Bei Bei was serious as he said, "It's far more amazing. I once saw an upperclassman from the inner courtyard. He entered the Great Star Do Forest by himself, and defeated 3 10,000-year soul beasts with his bare hands, without killing them. He then took them back to the academy. Supposedly, that was the mission he'd received for his 10th year assessment." Tang Yue said, "I've even heard that there was once a 12th year upperclassman, who'd already reached the soul sage level by the time he graduated. Furthermore, he even possessed a 100,000-year soul ring. That upperclassman later stayed in the academy to be raised as the next dean of the academy." After hearing their explanations, Hui Yuhao had begun to have an impatient feeling. His interactions with Bei Bei and Tang Yue these past few days had made him deeply understand the enormous benefits he received towards his cultivation when he had a good teacher. Shrek Academy was undoubtedly the best choice. He secretly made a vow to himself that, no matter how hard he had to work, he'd ensure that he remained in the outer courtyard, and that he would strive to enter the inner courtyard in the future. Shrek Academy wasn't located in the middle of Shrek City, but the eastern part. This was because the distant Great Star Do Forest was located towards the east. Shrek Academy was surrounded by land in all directions, and could also be said to be accessible from all directions. It wasn't only the location of Shrek Academy, but was also the most important trade city for the Doluo continent's original 3 empires. Because of Shrek Academy, the peacekeeping within Shrek City was extremely good. Transactions made within the city weren't just fair, but also made people feel at ease. Because of this, most of the merchants from the 3 empires would choose to do their business within Shrek City when conducting transnational trade. The southern, western, and northern city gates of Shrek City could be entered and exited through at will. Only the eastern gate was exclusive to Shrek Academy. Under Bei Bei and Tang Yue's lead, Hui Yuhao arrived outside the eastern city gate. This city gate was only usable by Shrek Academy, but it was currently extremely busy. There were at least 5,000 people gathered outside the eastern gate, and it was unusually lively. A large number of traders had already moved here due to the rumors, as this gate was even livelier than the other gates by a large margin. Junior brother, you're just in time for the Academy's recruitment of new students. You should be able to join this year's batch of new students without any problems, which will make you our junior by 3 years. These ordinary new students don't just have to pass the assessment, but also have to have a recommendation letter from one of the 3 Empire's capital cities at the very minimum. This time of year is always the busiest period of time for Shrek City. Hui Yuhao quietly asked, eldest senior brother, is the assessment very difficult? Bei Bei hesitated, and subconsciously looked towards Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao asked seriously, then, will the first assessment, after 3 months, also test my soul force? With his physique, wanting to increase his soul force from the 11th rank to the 15th rank within 3 months was an entirely impossible task. Bei Bei shook his head and replied, no. The assessments of our Shrek Academy always consist of live combat. As a teacher once said, any amount of numerical data pales in the face of live combat. Hui Yuhao forcefully nodded his head. Teacher Xiao Ya, eldest senior brother, perhaps I currently can't compare to the overwhelming majority of the new students, but I will definitely exceed them in the future. His words had a calmness that surpassed his peers, and a firmness that did the same was also present within his spirit eyes. Bei Bei, who was a head taller than Hui Yuhao, extended his arms out to grab his shoulders as he said, let's go. If you can get through the following 3 months, eldest senior brother will be optimistic about your chances to get to the end. Bei Bei and Tang San took Hui Yuhao with them as they skirted the crowd, and arrived at the eastern city gate. There were 10 male and female youths standing outside the eastern city gate, protecting it. They were roughly the same age as Tang San and Bei Bei, and all of them were wearing yellow warrior robes with a green pattern inscribed on the chests. This was the uniform for 2nd and 3rd year students of Shrek Academy's outer courtyard. When they saw Bei Bei, they immediately became respectful. Eldest senior brother Bei, you've returned. Bei Bei smiled and greeted every one of his junior and senior brothers. Afterwards, he spoke a few words to the leader of the group. That student glanced at Hui Yuhao, then immediately nodded his head. There's nothing to doubt about our senior brother's words. Go take this junior brother inside to register. Bei Bei smiled as he gave him a thumbs up. Thanks. I'll treat you junior brothers to a meal next time. The other person wasn't polite either as he laughed. Then that's that. We won't give up the chance to have a feast. Bei Bei raised his hand and gave him a high five. I won't disappoint everyone. When he'd finished speaking, he and Tang San took Hui Yuhao into the eastern city gate, which was also the symbol for Shrek Academy's door. Not far away, a new student, who'd just finished enrolling for his assessment, asked the older student who was in charge of his assessment, senior classmate, who was that senior classmate? That was senior brother Bei. His name is Bei Bei, but everyone calls him Thunderbolt Bei Bei. He possesses the number 1 beast soul, the blue lightning tyrant dragon. Furthermore, he's exceptionally talented. At the age of 13, he broke through to the 30th rank, and his cultivation has supposedly approached the 40th rank, which means that he could break through and become a soul ancestor in 1 or 2 years. He's one of the outstanding experts of our outer courtyard. With senior brother Bei's strength, and if it weren't for that junior classmate called Tang San, who's accompanying him, he could have already started the 5th year assessment for the outer courtyard. If he breaks through to the 40th rank, I predict that even the 6th year assessments won't stop him. Eldest senior brother Bei isn't just strong, he's always been kind to people. If you were to ask who the most popular person in the outer courtyard was, it would definitely be him. Senior brother Bei is the prince charming of many female students in the outer courtyard, but is single-mindedly focused on who he loves. For the sake of junior classmate Tang San, he's rejected the confessions of an uncountable number of junior and senior female classmates. Reportedly, even some of the female senior classmates from the inner courtyard have fallen for him. Everyone says that senior brother Bei will definitely enter the inner courtyard in 2 years at most. Bei Bei said to Hui Yuhao, the person in the middle is the founder of Shrek Academy, and also the first dean of the academy, Flender. The person to his left is an ancestor of my clan. He created the teaching foundations that are currently used by various martial soul systems within Shrek Academy. He's also one of the martial soul world's 10 core role models, and has the title of Grandmaster. His name is Yu Xiaogang. My mother was a direct descendant of his bloodline. The woman to the right is also another ancestor of mine, Liu Erlong. She's Grandmaster's wife. The three of them were able to merge together and form the Golden Iron Triangle. If Dean Flender could be said to have founded Shrek Academy, then Grandmaster would be the true spirit behind it. He was also the person who single-handedly raised Shrek's 7 monsters, whose sculptures are behind them. The sculpture of Grandmaster looked like a middle-aged man who'd wasted away a bit, while Liu Erlong was a charming middle-aged woman. There were 7 sculptures lined up horizontally behind them. When Hui Yuhao's gaze fell upon the sculpture in the middle, who stood at the forefront of the others, his body couldn't help but tremble. It was a statue of a tall man who had a handsome appearance, but the most peculiar thing about him were his eyes. There was a pattern on his forehead with the word King, and although it was only a sculpture, it had a sort of imposing and strong pressure. The 7 sculptures that stand behind the Golden Iron Triangle are Shrek's 7 monsters, who previously created their own glory. The person who's standing in front is the White Tiger Doluor, Dai Mubai, while the second person is the Sausage Doluor, Oscar. The third person is our Tang sex ancestor, the Azura Doluor, Tang San. Tang San was the most handsome amongst the 7. His blue hair was draped across his shoulders, and he wore a simple set of warrior's robes. Blue vines that were clearly his blue-silver grass martial soul had coiled around the sculpture. There was also a faint smile at the corner of his mouth, but his lifelike gaze was fixed on a woman who was 5th in the row, who had braided hair. The 4th person is the evil phoenix Doluor, Ma Hongjun, while the 5th person is Tang San's wife, the soft-bone Doluor, Xiao Wu. According to the stories, she was a 100,000-year soul beast who chose to cultivate as a human. The person even further back is the 9 treasure Doluor, Ning Rongrong, who holds the title of the world's strongest auxiliary soul master. She was also the sausage Doluor's wife. The last person is the netherworld Doluor, Zhu Zhuqing. She was the wife of the white tiger Doluor. The first generation of Shrek's 7 monsters sculptures all had different shapes, but the fact that they were all titled Duluos attested to how strong they'd been in the past. Tang Ya's gaze was fixed on the sculpture of the Azura Doluor, Tang San. The Golden Iron Triangle and the first generation of Shrek's 7 monsters had laid the foundation for Shrek Academy. Even though 10,000 years had gone by, and even though Shrek Academy had raised an uncountable number of outstanding geniuses and experts, the number of sculptures had never increased, and had remained at 10. Bei Bei explained to Hui Yuhao, "We'll have to separate here. If you walk to the left, you'll arrive at the Martial Soul Institution. If you walk to the right, you'll arrive at the Soul Engineering Institution. These are the 2 largest branches of Shrek Academy, and they both belong to the outer courtyard. If you were to compare them, the Martial Soul Institution is larger, while the Soul Engineering Institution is smaller. Furthermore, the Martial Soul Institution is also divided into many departments. We'll go to the Martial Soul Institution to get you registered first. The basic requirement for you to enroll in the Soul Engineering Institution is for you to pass the first assessment for new students." Hui Yuhao's gaze was still stuck on the 10 sculptures. When he thought about the legends that his mother had told him about, he occasionally felt a shocked feeling rise in his heart. The road to the left of the sculptures was still very wide, and could fit 4 or 5 carriages side by side. There was a signboard next to the road with the words Lakeside Path written on it. You could faintly see a large body of water hidden within the shady green trees to the right. This also meant that there was an enormous lake behind the 10 sculptures of the Golden Iron Triangle and Shrek's 7 monsters. Tang Yue noticed Hui Yuhao's gaze, and couldn't help but speak with a slightly proud voice. "That's an artificial lake made for the sake of commemorating our Tang sex ancestor, Tang San. It's called Sea God's Lake, because according to the legends, our ancestor Tang San inherited the Sea God's legacy. The Sea God's Lake has an extremely large surface area, and is filled entirely with groundwater. Our Shrek Academy's inner courtyard is located on an island in the middle of the Sea God's Lake. Every single disciple from the outer courtyard feels honored if they are able to reach the center island of Sea God's Lake." Bei Bei looked toward the Sea God's Lake with a deep gaze, and a determined and stubborn light flashed through his eyes. The Sea God's Lake was indeed very large. As they followed the lakeside path to head southward, they only needed to turn westwards after a full 15 minutes had passed. Only after they'd walked another 15 minutes, or so did the path finally begin to recede, causing a vast, rectangular plaza to appear in their line of sight. A signboard with the words, Shrek Plaza, also stood beside the plaza. There were many tall teaching areas behind Shrek Plaza. The colors of these teaching areas were all different, and were separated into 4 main colors: white, yellow, purple, and black. If one gazed into the far south of Shrek Plaza, they'd even be able to see a gray teaching area. The new students' white teaching areas were located to the far south, and were also the closest to the lakeside path. The 3 of them walked southwards from Shrek Plaza, arriving at the teaching area. Because it was currently the period that new students were admitted in, the new students' teaching area was especially lively. A few new students, who'd already passed their assessments, were currently there to enroll. With Bei Bei and Tang Yu's guidance, Hu Yuhao was able to report for his registration extremely smoothly. The school's fees were paid by Bei Bei, with the fee for a new student unexpectedly being 10 gold soul coins. Furthermore, this didn't include his food expenses. If one had to quit school due to failing an assessment, their school fees wouldn't be refunded. After collecting his dorm key, and 2 sets of school uniforms, as well as a white freshman badge, Hu Yuhao followed Tang Yu and Bei Bei towards the new students' teaching area. Tang Yu said, "Little Yuhao, the dormitories behind the teaching areas, it's the largest building in the entire academy. You can go there by yourself later. New students will formally start their classes in 3 days, so you can familiarize yourself with the environment during the next few days. We've paid for your first year school fees, but you'll have to rely on yourself for next year. The academy has various types of competitions, all of which have prize money for winning them. Also, you're already a soul master, so once you finish registering, you can collect a salary that the 3 empires give out once a month. You should save some of it, but it should be enough for food." Hu Yuhao made sure he remembered everything that Tang Yu said. When he was about to bid his farewells to teacher Xiao Yu and Bei Bei looked at the nearby bulletin board and furrowed his brows slightly when he saw the announcement pasted on it. Hu Yuhao didn't need to walk up to it. He merely circulated his soul force a bit, and the strong visual abilities of his spirit eyes exhibited their use, allowing him to see the words on the announcement clearly. Hu Yuhao's mother had taught him how to read since he was young, so although he'd never formally attended school, his education level wasn't bad at all. He saw the words that were written on the announcement: Teacher in charge of the Class 1, Ju Yi. Teacher in charge of Class 2, Ju Yi. I think that I'm in Class 1. Because he'd registered early, Hu Yuhao had been directly assigned to the first class of new students, Class 1. Tang Yu had also noticed. She let out a low cry of surprise. "Ah? Why is it that perverted old grandma, Ju Yi? Doesn't she teach year 3? Why would she be assigned to teach new students?" After hearing Bei Bei's introduction to teacher Ju, Hu Yuhao was also astonished. Eldest senior brother, if this teacher does these sort of things, why doesn't the school seem to care? Bei Bei spoke in a low voice. Although teacher Ju Yi is a strict teacher, she's honestly a very good one. Of all the students promoted from her class, none of them have actually said that she was a bad teacher. Teacher Ju's strictness is mainly reflected in the high requirements that she sets for her students, as well as in her harsh teaching methods. However, almost a fourth of the students who've been taught by teacher Ju and passed have entered the inner courtyard. This statistic is one of the best within the entire academy. Teacher Ju was only demoted to teaching freshmen because the commotion was too big this time. However, as long as you work hard enough and are outstanding enough, teacher Ju's teaching will only have benefits for you. Hu Yuhao relaxed and replied, "So it's like that. Teacher Xiao Yu, eldest senior brother, you guys must have plenty of other things to do. I'll return to my room first." Bei Bei smiled and said, "That's fine, teacher Xiao Yu, and I want to go and take our promotion test. If we can pass this test, we'll be promoted to 4th years. I live in room 316, so you can go there if you need anything." Bei Bei and Tang Yu were truly busy. The reason why Tang Yu had been in such a rush to obtain her 3rd soul ring was so that she could smoothly pass the 4th year promotion test. Furthermore, there would be even more issues waiting for them after they were promoted. Hui Yuhao had gone to the Great Star Do Forest alone, and had obtained his soul ring there, so his self-protection abilities were quite strong. Thus, they didn't worry much about him. After passing through the white school building for first years, and the yellow school building for second and third year students, Hui Yuhao saw the dormitory. The dormitory occupied an extremely large area, and although it was only a single building, the same four colors, white, yellow, purple, and black, were still present on it. The building's colors clearly represented the different living areas of the students from their respective years, and had a total of 6 floors. Hui Yuhao arrived at the entrance to the white building, and was met with the sight of a man who looked quite old. The old man had a set of grey clothes on, and the number of flies that his wrinkles could crush to death had reached the double digits. His eyes were yellow and muddle-headed, while his eyelids were droopy. His appearance was as if he had 1 foot in the grave. The sunlight between the buildings spilled perfectly over his body. His body, which was half lying in a chair, actually gave off a very comfortable feeling. Hui Yuhao walked forward and spoke respectfully, "Hello, Grandpa. I'm a new student who's come to live in the dormitory. Would you like to check my freshman badge?" The old man didn't even raise his head, as he stretched his trembling right hand out. Then, a slightly deep yet hoarse voice echoed out, "Take your badge and dormitory key out for me to see." Hui Yuhao hurriedly passed the 2 items over. "Thank you." After bowing and greeting the old man again, Hui Yuhao walked into the dormitory building. The old man didn't move from his original position, as he muttered nostalgically to himself, "It's rare to see a kid with manners." As he muttered to himself, a few new students walked past the area. However, they clearly hadn't taken note of the old man beside the building and directly went inside. The old man didn't stop them either. He simply sat there drowsily. After following the old man's instructions, Hui Yuhao quickly found his dorm room. The dormitory had a standard hallway layout, with both sides of the long hallway having dorm rooms with numbers etched into their doors. The passage of time was clearly visible in the dorm rooms, and it could be seen that they had been in use for an extremely long amount of time. The 2 ends of the corridor had shared bathrooms. After using his key to open the door, a gust of slightly musty air surged out of the room. Hui Yuhao hurriedly turned to the side, waited a while, then held his breath as he charging into the room and opened the window. The room had been uninhabited for over a month, at the very minimum. A layer of dust covered the entire room. By relying on the window's ventilation, Hui Yuhao was able to clearly see the dorm room's layout. The dorm room was very small, its area only about 10 square meters or so. The 2 beds took up a large portion of the room's floor space, but there was also a table, 2 metal wardrobes, as well as a lamp on the ceiling. There were also a few metal protrusions on one of the walls. Bei had told him that lamps were basic soul tools that needed soul force in order to light up. The metal protrusions were places that one could pour soul force into. After some ventilation, the musty air within the dorm room had finally cleared up. As Hui Yuhao looked around the small room, a hard-to-describe excitement appeared in his heart. From today onwards, this would be the dorm room that he'd live in for a year. From the looks of it, he'd even have a dorm mate. "I'll clean up a bit first." The saying poor children can manage a house earlier on in life was true. Although he'd been born in the Duke's mansion, Hui Yuhao's life hadn't even been as good as a commoner's. He used a little bit of his saved money to buy a basin from the student convenience store located outside the dorms, and after requesting a used cleaning rag from the shop, he immediately started to clean the dorm room. After only an hour had passed, not even a speck of dust was left under the meticulous scrutiny of Hui Yuhao's spirit eyes. Although everything in the dorm room was still in place, there was now a sort of fresh smell to it. Hui Yuhao didn't plan on buying any sort of bedding for himself, since the wooden bed was already enough for someone like him, who devoted all of his hard work to cultivating. He felt a bit hungry, so he inquired about the dining hall's location. After buying the cheapest lunchbox from the student convenience store, he went to the dining hall. Each year group had a dining hall that belonged to them, which were located behind the dormitory. When Hui Yuhao walked into the freshman dining hall, he was astonished. At that moment, there weren't many people in the dining hall, making it appear extremely spacious. There wasn't even a single table, it was an entirely empty place. There was only a wash basin used to wash one's hands and tableware. The inner parts of the dining hall had windows that one could buy food from, with price tags outside them. There were a total of 8 windows that increased in price from right to left, and all served different dishes. There were actually no seating areas in the dining hall. The dining hall's entrance even had the words "No food is allowed to be taken from the dining hall. No exceptions," written on it. After a brief moment of astonishment, Hui Yuhao walked towards the rightmost window to buy the cheapest available food, which was stir-fried vegetables and white rice. However, he still devoured the food despite its quality. For him, having something to eat was already extremely good. Furthermore, the food's price was extremely cheap, it was only 2 copper coins. With his monthly income of 1 gold coin, he could eat for the entire month as long as he was frugal with his money. After sitting in a cross-legged position on the sturdy wooden bed, Hui Yuhao quickly entered a meditative state, and started cultivating the mysterious heaven technique. Although his cultivation speed was far slower than Bei Bei's or Tang Ya's, he'd already improved quite a bit compared to the past. After changing his cultivation technique to the mysterious heaven technique, he could now at least feel a slight improvement in his cultivation, as he cultivated, which was much better than his previous state. Furthermore, after the few days of cultivation that he'd done during their journey back, his originally chaotic and impure soul force had already completely turned into that of the mysterious heaven technique. Soul force was the foundation of a soul master. Currently, he had to use as much of his as he could to cultivate the mysterious heaven technique. Oh, this technique isn't bad at all. It's indeed quite suitable for your current state. You humans are really skilled. When Hui Yuhao had just entered his cultivation state, everything he saw suddenly turned white. The voice of the Sky Dream Iceworm also echoed out. He'd been brought back to his spiritual sea. Hui Yuhao was slightly surprised as he called out, "Brother Sky Dream." The Sky Dream Iceworm's lazy voice echoed out, "Your body's condition has changed a lot during the past few days. You've finally gotten a good start. Your body's endurance has also been gradually increasing. Not bad, not bad. The abilities that you're cultivating are suitable for you, especially this meditation technique, and that eye training technique. The 4 soul skills I've given you have indeed received benefits from them. You must practice using these soul skills constantly, especially the last one. It should be very effective when combined with your eye training technique. You've obtained a basic soul attack skill. All in all, your condition, as of now, is slightly better than I had predicted. Brother Sky Dream, I'll definitely put a lot of effort into cultivating." After hearing the Sky Dream Iceworm's voice, Hui Yuhao reaffirmed that he'd truly merged with a million-year soul beast, and that he hadn't been dreaming. The Sky Dream Iceworm then said, "I'm tired, thus I need to rest for a period of time. You should just follow your current cultivation method. When you break through, and you need a second soul ring, I'll naturally wake up. At that time, the Ice-type martial soul that I bestowed you with should be able to become a full-fledged martial soul. It'll cause your strength to have a qualitative leap." Hui Yuhao replied, "How can I find you if I need to?" The Sky Dream Iceworm said, "If you encounter any danger that you're unable to escape, I'll naturally help you out. Don't worry, I can only live while you're still alive. Alright, I'm going to sleep." The white light vanished, and Hui Yuhao woke up from his meditation. To his astonishment, he found that the sky outside had already turned completely dark. He'd actually cultivated for 6 hours at the very least. This video will end here.